Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Today, Jesse and I are going to be talking about this new wave of AI technology, our thoughts on it, and ways that we are actually using it in our lives. Balancing building a successful business and being a superstar mom is hard, and yet, in today's digital world, it's more common than ever.
The question becomes, how do we successfully grow a business and children at the same time?
Join us for a candid conversation as we share our insights into marketing and motherhood. I'm Angela Reeder.
And I'm Jessie Valle. Welcome to the Marketing Moms Podcast.
Oh my goodness, AI.
I feel like so many people are out there talking about how you could use AI.
Mm-hmm.
But are people actually talking about how they're actually using it?
Yes. And there's a lot of conversation around it. People have a lot of really strong feelings about AI and how
I
it's
feel like
being
you do
used.
too.
And I do. I'm not gonna lie. I have strong but mixed feelings about AI and how it's being used. But I will say from the jump, my personal opinion with AI is that it is useful for helping to come up with ideas and create things. But as far as creating a finished product, I feel like that AI is not the way to go for that. Like, you can use it to help you outline a blog post, but not necessarily to write the whole blog post. And a lot of that comes from some of the issues that AI has with like copyright and plagiarism and things like that. But and also I don't think a computer is ever going to do quite as good a job as at the like creative side of things than a person. So
Yeah.
that's my general opinion. But I do use it for stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting how. So I had sent Angela a little bit of a clip of a YouTube video yesterday that talked about
Mhm.
branding and how if people in their business just do what they think people want, then you lose yourself.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, maybe you're just jumping on a fad. And then when the fad's over, you're left with this business that you never even wanted in the first place because it's not
Yeah.
you. And
That was
that's
such
kind of
a
how
good
I
point.
feel with AI, right? Like, don't just jump on the bandwagon. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And there are some practical ways I have used AI. I'm not against AI. I'm for using AI in a logical, proper way. I am
Yes.
not a fan of just completely relying on it
Mhm.
blindly.
Yeah. Well, and it's talking about this fad and I see it with AI, but the best recent example has been Threads. So the day that Threads launched, I was on it first thing in the morning. I didn't get up at 3 o'clock or anything to see it launch. I just, when I woke up, I made a Threads thing and I was looking through it. But then I started scrolling Facebook and Instagram and the other social channels, and I was noticing people already pushing like courses and workshops and
Hmm.
freebies on how to maximize your reach on Threads and how to use Threads for your business. And all I could think was, this has been out for 5 hours. There is no way you know anything more about this platform than I do.
Hmm.
Like, you cannot possibly, especially since at the time, and I haven't noticed one since, there was no analytics on
Hmm.
Threads. Like, there was no way to track that. So there's no way to track if what you're doing is working or anything like that. So it was just one of those things where I was like, all of these people are jumping on this fad of like, let me help you make your threads better. And I'm like, this platform's 5 hours old.
Yeah. Now, I thought it's funny. I saw someone make that a post very similar to that about like, I can't believe people are out there telling you how to use threads to, grow your company. And
Mm-hmm.
then the next post they had was a tip.
For how to
I'm
use
like, you've
threads.
got to be kidding me. What a hypocrite.
Right? Yeah, and I think the same thing is happening with AI. It's just that seeing it happen so fast with Threads was a really good example because as soon as now ChatGPT and there's another program called Dolly that creates images. That was the first one I ever played with.
Hmm.
Those had been out for a while.
Hmm.
But when they hit the news and they became really popular overnight, we did see this influx of people. Let me show you how to use AI to automate all your stuff and all the business and write all your blog posts for you and write all your emails for you and do all the stuff for you. And it's like, you can technically, I could go into ChatGPT and have it write a blog post for me. But first of all, it's not going to sound like me.
Hmm.
Um, and it may or may not be accurate because ChatGPT does pull information from the internet, but we are all grown-ups and we know that not all information on the internet is true. The old adage that they can't put it on the internet if it's not true is not true. So it may or may not be accurate and it may or may not be plagiarized.
Well, and also, I don't know if it's still that way, but for a time, like ChatGPT only got information all the way up until a few years ago. Like they don't even have
Right.
current stuff.
They don't, yeah. It didn't pull current information. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be
So,
different now. That was several months back, and you know how fast
right.
this goes.
Oh yeah, so fast. But yeah, so it's there's a lot of complex issues around AI and I'm not trying to say that like, oh, you should use AI for all the things, but there are some really good ways to use AI and a lot of really good AI tools that can help you with your business, especially if you're like me and you have a hard time coming up with ideas or, writing small blurbs like captions for social media.
Hmm.
Um, and those, I think, practical applications are what we will hopefully see the industry sort of settle into.
Yeah. Okay. So answer me this question then. And just so you guys are like on board with us, we decided we're just going to spitfire this conversation. Like we're like
Yeah, we don't have a list or
we
anything.
could create a list or we could do I was like, no, let's just have a conversation about AI. Like let's just talk realistically about AI. Okay. What are the last and I'll say two. What are the last two things you did with AI?
I used AI to help me write some social media captions because I am terrible at those. And I used AI to break down like a bigger task that I was working on.
Into smaller
I mean,
pieces.
technically, I think probably the last thing I used AI for was one of the AI filters on TikTok, but I don't think that counts.
That doesn't count. Okay. For myself, kind of the same thing. I had it create some I had clicked social captions,
Hmm.
but what I really used it for was the copy to go on some graphics for ads.
Right.
And then second, this is probably the favorite thing I've ever used AI for. I got input from my kids and created a bedtime story.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I went to my daughter. I'm like, okay, what do you want in the story? She said she wants a princess and a unicorn named Unica. And then I went to my son and I'm like, what do you want? And he said, I want a plane and I want an Autobot named Optimus.
That's so cool.
Or sorry, a rescue bot. There's so many
Sure.
stinking transformer bots these days. Yesterday, I'm
Right.
not even kidding you. Yesterday my son was pretending to be some sort of transformer thing and I had to call him this weird name. Like whatever.
Yeah. Also, side note, my kids also loved the unicorn named Unica. I think that must be just like a
A
universal
thing? Oh, I
kid
had no
name
clue. It
for
wasn't a thing for
unicorns.
me.
It
Anyway, so
wasn't for
then
me either.
I told ChatGPT to create a 5-minute story with all those four things, and it shot out. I'm not even kidding you. It was a great story.
Awesome.
And I read it in like 5 minutes, and then I had the kids take their stuffed animals and stuff and act out the story.
Aw.
Bedtime story done. And it was something new and something they had input in. And I didn't have to read the same story 10 million
Yeah.
times.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that is a perfect example of ways that AI can be used responsibly.
Hmm.
Like, make a 5-minute bedtime story for my kids is, in my opinion, and I know there are people that disagree with me, a perfectly acceptable way to use AI.
Hmm.
Now, if it's write a 25-page children's story that I can publish and make money off of, like, then we're getting into some iffy territory. But yeah, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I never even thought about that. Now I want to try it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I know. Too bad your kids are starting to get a little older.
I know. I don't know, my
um,
kids might still dig that. It's like bedtime Mad Libs.
yes, it is. I love that. Um, the I saw yesterday an AI thing that it was a prompt about like creating an entire book from just like a little prompt.
Oh, wow.
I was just like you said, Angela,
Yeah.
sure you can do these things, but at what point? Because it's not going to sound like you. It's not going to be you. Even when I know, there are ghostwriters, right? So people can hire other people to write books for them.
Right.
But part of the research is learning the tone and the style of the person who's slapping their name on the book.
Right.
So even if, say, I hired someone to write a book and slap Jesse Valle on there, it's going to still sound like me because they've done their research
Right.
to learn me, to learn my patterns, to learn my style. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've shared with you a couple things we've actually used it for, um, it, I, there are some things that I saw that could be helpful, but whether you
Mhm.
actually use it or not, I don't know. One of them was creating a meal plan. Now, here's the
I've seen.
thing. I had shared on a previous episode that I'm trying HelloFresh. And at first I thought the same thing about this. Like, there's no way I would have AI tell me what to make for dinner because it's going to pick things I don't like or my kids don't like or this and that. But the thing I learned about HelloFresh is it's having me and my husband try things that we've never tried in our whole life. Like different spices. Like I
Mhm.
did one last night that were these tacos. I cannot even pronounce the two types of spices that went on there. And I'd never heard of them. I've never
Oh, I
used
love
them.
spices.
It was like some sort of sauce. I'm
Mm.
assuming it was supposed to be some sort of like Asian flavor, and my husband and I don't really eat a lot of Asian foods.
Mhm.
And so for us, it felt very foreign and it was very weird and it was delicious. It was so good. I'm like, I would totally eat this again, but it's not something I would have ever made myself.
Right.
And so that's how I feel about telling something like AI, you know, create me 5 dishes in the grocery list to go along with it. It could
Mhm.
totally do that.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to just jump in and try something new.
Yeah. There's a lot of possibilities with AI that I had not considered. I was telling Jesse about one that I've played with a little bit. It's called Goblin Tools, and the whole point of it is that you put in a task and it breaks the task down for you. So you could tell it, I need to clean the bathroom, break that down for me, and it will break it into smaller tasks like clean the sink, clean the toilet, wipe the floor, whatever. But then you can click on those tasks and it will break each of those tasks down for you, which can be really useful if you are someone who has a hard time getting started with things and like
Mhm.
really needs to break it down to a small step to get yourself going. Or if you are trying to break it down into steps for your kids to help.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
So, if you tell your kids, I need you to clean the bathroom, that can be really overwhelming, especially
Mhm.
if they don't know what they're doing. Breaking it down into smaller tasks like scrub the toilet, wipe out the sink, wipe down the shower can be helpful. But especially if you have smaller kids, breaking those tasks down even further
Mhm.
helps a lot more. And I was playing with it and it was coming up with pieces of the tasks that I do, but I didn't really think of as like a step in the
Mhm.
task. So if I had been
Find
writing out
rag,
a
get it
plan,
wet.
right? Yeah, exactly. If I had been writing that out for my kids, I wouldn't have considered that a step. But my kid, like, as one of my kids especially, is very literal, and like that's a step they would have needed
Mhm.
to like realize. I mean, they would have figured out you have to have a wet rag, but like it would have been a thing where they came to me and said, what do I wipe this down with?" Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about that sometimes too. Like, I feel like in life, I'm a problem solver. And so if I was standing in a room and I'm like, okay, I need to clean this, I need to get a rag and I need to, go forward. And I feel like that's a skill that I want to try to teach my kids, but I'm not quite sure
Mhm.
how. And maybe this could help, right? Like just
Yeah.
showing them instances of here's step by step how you could do something. So then the next time they're standing there and they're like, oh, I need to clean this. What do I do? I need to find a rag and I need to get it wet. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, the next thing I'm going to try is using it to help my kids clean their rooms.
Ooh.
Because I made a list for them the other day and it worked out pretty well, but it was kind of broad and there was like
Mhm.
a lot of questions. So I was like, I wonder if I could use that. So that's my next challenge with that.
Mm.
But I've seen AI used in a lot of ways. One I saw mentioned the other day that I haven't tried but looked really interesting was called Reclaim. And it basically helps you find, like, it helps you with your calendar and your like scheduling for the day
Mhm.
and making things go efficiently and finding pockets of times where you can put in work or have a meeting or whatever. It's basically like a personal assistant, I guess, I would
Mm.
think, kind of. I've never had one, but just sort of keeping your calendar, making sure you're staying on track and being
Mhm.
productive. And I had a couple of people talking about it and they just raved about it. They thought it was
Mhm.
amazing. So,
Mm. Yeah, I follow this guy on Instagram that literally all the time, all they do is just list different tools that use AI. There are
oh, and there's so
so
many.
many, so many.
I oh, I forgot when you asked me what the last two things I did with AI was. One
Mhm.
of them, I was wrong about the thing. One of them was uh, creating product descriptions, helping
Mm.
me create product descriptions because Shopify has added AI
Mhm.
to its platform. And so now you can give it keywords, which I don't do a lot of SEO, but I feel like would be very useful in that case. You could put in some of your SEO keywords and a few others, and it will write a product description for you in different, you can tell it different tones, like
Mhm.
sophisticated, playful, whatever.
Yeah.
And I usually end up going in and changing things a little bit, but it's a
Mhm.
really great start,
Starting point.
especially if,
Yeah.
yeah, especially if I have a client that doesn't have product descriptions already.
Yeah. And
So,
I've started noticing that too. Just this last week, I've seen several platforms that I'm a part of like email and say, "We now have AI integrated."
uh yeah,
And some of them I'm interested, like, okay, well, how? Like, how is this going to help me be, more efficient using your platform? But I feel like it's almost getting to the point now where when someone adds AI to their platform, it's kind of like, oh, huh, okay,
okay, yeah,
got it. And what's crazy is this has only been a thing for a little over 6 months.
yeah.
And
It's
that's how
amazing how fast.
fast this blew up.
Yeah,
That for someone to add AI to their platform is just kind of like, yeah, okay,
yeah,
figured. It's about time.
yeah. I was
Versus, whoa, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
I was flabbergasted when I first got into the Dolly AI. And it has a whole bunch of issues in itself as far as like pulling copyrighted images, but I got to play with it before it went public.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know how. I just came across it and tried to sign up and they let me in. It was the one time I was super cool to my teenager because all of her artsy TikTokers had been talking about it and how hard it was to get access to it. And you had to be like super awesome. And I somehow managed it. And she thought I
Hey,
was
you are
amazing.
super awesome. I think that's what
Uh,
that means.
but playing with that, it was mind blowing. It was my first actual experience interacting with an AI. And it was funny because it was still new. So I would put in a prompt and I would get back some like really ridiculous images. Um, but I had to keep refining and keep going back and forth with it. And it was really fun to use. And I was absolutely amazed. And then I got access to Chat GPT when it got, kind of blew up. And I was like, this is awesome. But now it's just like, if I see one more thing that's just like blatantly written with AI, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah. Ooh, you know what I tried last week? So this isn't my most recent two, but it is something I've tried. I tried the Photoshop AI.
Oh, I haven't tried that one.
It left me wanting a little bit.
Oh,
I know it stinks because I had really high hopes, because the ones that I see
yeah.
on the internet are like, oh, that's so cool. So like
Right.
I even saw like yesterday a post, and they said something like, circled a person and they said remove people, and then it removed them, and I'm like, oh, that looks so cool. But when I tried it and I'm like remove people, it added a different person. Or maybe it's the prompt. Here's something else we need to talk about. You have to be
Yeah.
really good about your prompts. And I'm
Yes.
pretty sure I put remove person, and then it replaced them with another person.
Right.
So maybe that's it, is I had the wrong prompt. I should have said remove people. Now I got
Yeah.
to go try it. But that's
Right.
the other thing. It's like,
That
if
is the
you
other
aren't
thing with AI.
satisfied, you have to look inward and say, did I give them a proper prompt?
Yeah. It's not as intuitive as people think it's going to be, and it's not as easy as people think it's going to be. And I
Mhm.
think that's where some of the frustration with AI comes from, where people are like, I tried it and it was stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
But
but
even like I've just said, okay, it's the difference between saying remove person and
and remove people.
remove people.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just really about the prompts. And that's something I was telling a client the other day. We were talking about AI, and I was like, the thing with AI, the good thing with AI for the most part, is that it can only do what you tell it to do. But the bad thing with AI is that it will do exactly what you tell it to do. So you have to be very, very specific in your prompts and what you want out of it in order to get back what you want. It's not like Google, where you can just type in something and it will come up with a bunch of related things.
Mhm.
The AI is going to give you back exactly what you ask for, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I don't want AI thinking for itself. I want it to do exactly what I tell it to do. But but it does make it difficult to work, especially if it's a new platform like the one we were playing with the other day, where we were doing the exact same thing but getting different results, because
Yep.
yours was opening in a window and mine was opening in a sidebar, and it was doing two
Mhm.
different things. Like, clearly somewhere along the way our settings are off or
Mhm.
something. But we were getting very different results from the thing we were trying to play with, and that is a really good example of how you have to like really know what you're doing sometimes with AI. Some of the tools, like Goblin Tools, super easy. Tell it what you want it to do, it'll break it down. But I think the reason that works is because it's a very this is the only thing it does type
Mhm.
tool. It's a lot
Which,
different than Chat GPT.
can I say, that is very similar to some of the things we've talked about in the past? Like, okay, what about all those platforms that do 5 things? That's
Yeah,
cool. But are they doing all 5 of those things amazingly? When you
right.
can have this one platform over here that does just one thing, and they are the
Mhm.
bomb at that one thing. And it's kind
Right.
of the same
Or
thing about having a business. Like, when you
yeah,
niche down, instead of saying, I'm going to do these 5 things, you say, I'm going to do this one thing, and I'm going
one
to do it
thing.
better than anybody else. And I'm going
Right.
to become known for doing that one thing. So
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with being something that does one thing really well and get known for it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Or you have the platforms that do 5 things, but you really only need it to do 2 of the 5 things, but you still have
Mhm.
to pay for all 5 things.
Yep. There you go. Well, that's just business.
That is just business. But it is, when you can have a different platform that does one of those things really, really well,
Yeah.
then you really have to start looking at whether or not it's worth it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that is a big thing. And I think one of the reasons that the AI platforms like ChatGPT, and I know there are other ones, but that's just the most well-known, that are especially the text prompt based ones, get so much attention is because it can do so many things. Because people say, I had it write me a meal plan, I had it write me a blog post outline, I had it draft an email for me so that I could, resign or whatever. Like, it does all the things, but then when you dig into it, that's also where you see the frustration of, I asked it to do this thing and I couldn't get it to work.
Right. Yeah.
And I do think we'll see a lot more programs niching down into doing one specific thing, so that it is easier for people to use and actually get the result they want.
Yeah. I think the overall message is, don't be afraid of AI. It's perfectly acceptable to use AI responsibly. It's like drinking. Do it responsibly.
Responsibly. Yes.
Use AI responsibly. If you have examples of you actually using AI, not what you could do with it, but you actually using it, please put it on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok.
You're on Threads.
And tag us at Marketing Moms Podcast. We're at, Marketing Moms Podcast on all the platforms. We want to hear about it. Like, I want examples of what people are actually doing with it, not what you could do with it.
Not what you could do with it.
Please let us know, and we will chat with you next week. Thank you for joining us today. We're so honored this is where you chose to spend your time.
If this episode helped you in some way, please share it with another mom who needs to hear it. We're in this together.
And if you're ready for next steps, free goodies, and more, head over to marketingmomspodcast.com.
We'll see you next week.